Hello and welcome to my YouTube. In this YouTube, I'm going to show you how to set up a Yamaha PSR E463 keyboard to sound like a Wurlitzer theater organ. Sort of. The Wurlitzer theater organ, probably one of the two greatest musical instruments ever created by man, the other being the pipe organ. Can you imagine sitting down to something like this? This is what a Wurlitzer theater organ can look like. I mean, there are only a few dozen of these in the world to begin with. Here's a small one with just 4 keyboards on it. And here's a tiny little one with 3 keyboards on it. So they come in different sizes. A large Wurlitzer theater organ can have as many as 6,000 pipes. So let's start at the get-go. We're talking about a pipe organ here. These are not little organs that you have in your home. This takes a big theater or a large space like a big department store or something like that, a concert hall to hold these. These were originally built to be played in theaters where they were showing movies and the movies were silent. So the Wurlitzer organ had to basically replace an entire orchestra. A Wurlitzer theater organ can also play marimbas, xylophones, glockenspiels, sleigh bells, church bells, oboes, clarinets, flutes, trumpets, violins, drums, cymbals, castanets, car horns, chimes, mandolins, and cymbals. So behind the scenes in these organs, you had contraptions that looked like this, where you had all of these different instruments. Remember, this is not digital. This is not created electronically. These were all real things, real drums, real mandolins, real trumpets that were playing behind the curtain. Amazingly, the little E463 keyboard can also play all of these same sounds and instruments. The difference is the E463 voices are all digitally produced, while the Wurlitzer theater organ played real instruments. The name tells you where these organs were designed to be played. Wurlitzer theater organs. They were meant to be played in theaters, large spaces. They had to be large to be able to hold 4, 5, or 6,000 pipes. Here's one. I mean, this ain't your living room, folks. Here's a theater, and that's the Wurlitzer organ sitting in the middle of the stage. This one is close to home. This one was in my hometown. I lived in St. Louis, Missouri for 34 years, and this is the fabulous Fox Theater. It was built in 1929. It holds about 5,000 people, if you can imagine. A movie theater. This was to show movies, and it was reconditioned in the 80s, and sure enough, here is the Wurlitzer theater organ, and I've heard it many, many times. I remember I watched Phantom of the Opera, and I was seated somewhere in here in the first row. Phantom of the Opera, and I got to hear that Wurlitzer organ being played in that musical. A Wurlitzer theater organ can weigh up to 20 tons, cost over $2 million, and take up to 2 years to install one of these things. An E463 keyboard sells for $249 on eBay today, has 2 little 4-inch speakers, weighs a whopping 14 pounds, and can run on 6 AA batteries. So I'm doing this because someone watched one of my YouTubes and they said, Maury, could you show me how to create the sound of a Wurlitzer theater organ? And I ignored it for several weeks, and then I decided, oh, what the heck, let's see what I can do. But it's sort of like asking someone, can you make my Chang Li Nimica run like a Bugatti? And if you don't know what those cars are, here is the Chang Li Nimica. It sells for $1,100. That's new. This is a Chinese car. And this is the Bugatti. This is the La Voiture Noire, which translates the black car. And it sells for a mere 18 million.7. So asking me to make this little car run like this, that's sort of what's my challenge in getting an E463 keyboard to sound like a Wurlitzer theater organ. But what the heck? So here's what I did. I combined two of the E463's built-in organs. I took as my main voice, voice number 027, which is a theater organ. And I took as my dual voice, voice number 032, which is a pipe organ. And I combined both of those by turning on the dual voice. Then I went in and I manipulated each voice. And this was simply trial and error. You can't go anywhere and look this up. You just have to sort of play around with it. And so for a couple of hours, I played around with those two voices. And this is what I finally came up with. My main voice had these settings. And it was functions number 011 to 019, where I went in and I set up the main voice, which was a theater organ. I set it up like this. Then I set up a dual voice, and I came in and I started manipulating the settings on the pipe organ voice. And eventually, simply through trial and error, I came up with these settings. And this is function 020 to function 029. I've done an entire YouTube on the function button if you don't know how to do that. Anyway, so this was my main voice, and this is my dual voice. And I just messed around with it for a couple of hours, and I kept listening to recordings of Wurlitzer theater organs to try to imitate the sound as best I could, given what I had to work with. Okay? But when all is said and done, the speakers or headphones you are listening to makes all the difference in the world when you listen to this. Don't expect to hear a glorious Wurlitzer theater organ coming out of your smartphone or your tablet speakers or your computer's built-in speakers. My friends, there's no way these tiny little speakers built into our devices can begin to approach the sound of a 6,000 pipe organ. So let's go to the E463 keyboard and hear my modest version of a Wurlitzer theater organ. And by the way, I'm going to play one of my favorite songs, Finlandia by Jean Sibelius.